Commander Jake Morrison stared at the screen in front of him. The readings made no sense. Something massive was drifting near Jupiter. And it was not supposed to be there. Amy, run that scan again, he said to the communications officer beside him. Amy Sutton's fingers moved quickly across her console. Her face went pale. Sir, it's confirmed. That's a ship. An alien ship. The bridge of the Venture went silent. Every person stopped what they were doing. In 2147, humanity had finally reached beyond their own solar system, but they had never expected to find anyone else out here. Certainly not so close to home. Get me a visual, Jake ordered. The main screen flickered. What appeared made Jake's stomach sink. The ship was huge, easily 3 times the size of the Venture, but it was broken. Pieces of it were missing. Burn marks covered its hull. It was spinning slowly, completely out of control. Dr. Lisa Warren stepped forward. She was the chief scientist on board, and her eyes were wide with excitement and fear. Commander, that ship is dying. Look at the energy readings. Whatever power it had left is almost gone. Can we communicate with them? Jake asked Amy. I'm trying every frequency we have, sir. Nothing yet, Amy paused. Wait, I'm getting something. It's weak, but it's there. A sound filled the bridge. It was strange, like wind chimes mixed with whale songs. Then after a moment, a voice came through. It was being translated by their computer. Though the process was rough. Please, help. Dying. Cold. Captain Danny Pierce, the ship's military advisor, stepped next to Jake. Commander, we need to be careful. We don't know what we're dealing with. Jake nodded, but his mind was already made up. Amy, send a message. Tell them we're coming to help. The Venture moved closer to the alien ship. As they approached, they could see the damage more clearly. The ship looked ancient, like something from a museum. Its metal was dark and smooth, carved with patterns that seemed to tell a story. I'm detecting life signs, Lisa said. She was reading her instruments carefully. 43 individuals. Their body temperatures are dropping. Commander, they're freezing to death. Can we dock with them? Jake asked. The ship's pilot, a young man named Ryan, studied the alien vessel. There's a port on the side that looks compatible. I think I can match it. Do it, Jake ordered. The next hour was tense. The Venture slowly connected to the alien ship. When the seal was confirmed, Jake gathered a team. He took Lisa, Danny, and 4 others. They wore full spacesuits and carried medical supplies. The airlock opened. Cold air rushed out from the alien ship. It was so cold that frost formed on their suits immediately. Stay close, Jake said as they entered. The interior of the ship was beautiful and sad at the same time. The walls were covered in glowing symbols that were fading. The corridor was wide and curved, designed for beings that were clearly not human. They found the first alien around a corner. It was lying on the floor, wrapped in what looked like silver blankets. The creature was tall and thin, with skin that shimmered like oil on water. Its limbs were long and delicate. It had 4 arms and 2 legs. Its face was smooth except for large, dark eyes that seemed to hold entire universes. The alien looked at them and made a soft sound. Lisa carefully approached with a scanner. Its temperature is dangerously low. We need to warm them up slowly. They found the others in what seemed to be a central chamber. 42 more aliens huddled together for warmth. Some were moving weakly. Others were completely still. An alien near the center tried to stand. It was clearly older than the others. Its shimmer was dim, and it moved with great effort. It touched a device on its chest and a voice came out in broken English. We are, Keleth, it said. Our home gone, starred, exploded, we ran. Ship failing, please, help our young. Jake looked around at the dying aliens. He thought about Earth, about the governments that would debate and argue. He thought about the resources they barely had. Humanity was still struggling to colonize Mars. They had 1 working ship that could travel between stars. But he also thought about what it meant to be human. What it meant to help someone in need. We'll help you, Jake said firmly. All of you. The old alien's large eyes seemed to fill with tears. It made a sound that their translators couldn't process, but Jake understood. It was gratitude. The rescue took 3 days. The Venture's crew worked without rest. They brought the Keleth onto their ship one by one. They set up medical stations in the cargo bay. They shared their food, their water, their heat. Dr. Warren discovered the Keleth needed different nutrients than humans, but their basic biology was similar enough. With careful adjustments, they could eat some of Earth's food. During the rescue, the elder Kaleth, who introduced himself as Vane, showed Jake something. It was a data device, small and smooth. Vane pressed it into Jake's hands. "Gift," Vane said through his translator. "For kindness, formula faster than light. Your people can reach stars." Jake stared at the device. The Kaleth were giving them the key to the galaxy, and all humanity had done was offer warmth and food. "You don't need to give us anything," Jake said. Vane's shimmer pulsed. "You saved 43 lives. We have nothing else. But knowledge we share." When the venture finally turned back toward Earth, it carried more than its crew. It carried 43 survivors of a dead civilization, and it carried hope. Jake stood on the bridge and watched Jupiter shrink behind them. Amy was already transmitting messages to Earth, preparing them for what was coming. Danny was worried about the political situation. Lisa was excited about the scientific possibilities. But Jake just thought about the Kaleth huddled in the cargo bay, wrapped in human blankets, eating human food, and slowly warming up. He thought about how sometimes the most important decisions are the simplest ones. Help those who need it, no matter the cost. As Earth grew larger in front of them, Jake wondered what would come next. He had no idea that this single act of compassion would change everything. He had no idea that humanity had just made friends with a species that would one day give them the entire galaxy. All he knew was that they had done the right thing, and that was enough. The venture continued home, carrying its precious cargo toward an uncertain future. The debates on Earth lasted for 6 months. President Nicole Hayes sat through countless meetings where politicians argued about resources, about safety, about whether humanity could afford to help the Kaleth. In the end, the vote was close, but compassion won. The Kaleth were granted sanctuary on Mars. The Mars colony was small in 2147, barely 5,000 humans living in sealed domes. But it had something the Kaleth desperately needed: lower gravity. The Kaleth were fragile creatures, and Earth's gravity would slowly crush their delicate bones. Mars was perfect for them. The first year was hard. The Kaleth moved slowly, still recovering from their near-death experience. They were given their own dome, built specifically for their needs. Human engineers worked with Kaleth survivors to design it properly. The temperature was kept warmer than humans liked. The atmosphere was adjusted. The food was modified. Elder Vane watched all of this with quiet amazement. He had lived for 200 years, seen the rise and fall of his civilization, and witnessed the death of his star. But he had never seen anything like humanity's determination to help. "Why do you do this?" he asked Nicole during her visit to Mars. "We are strangers." "We have nothing you need," Nicole smiled. She was a tall woman with gray hair and kind eyes. "You needed help." "That's enough." Vane's shimmer pulsed with emotion. His species couldn't cry, but Nicole knew he was moved. "You are young species. Young species think of themselves first." "Maybe we're different," Nicole said. "Or maybe we're just hopeful that someone would do the same for us." As the months turned into years, the Kaleth began to contribute. They couldn't do physical labor, but their minds were sharp. They taught human children about mathematics that made professors dizzy. They shared art that showed humans new ways to see color and form. They told stories that had been old when Earth was young. Dr. Kevin Martinez was a young scientist when he first met the Kaleth. He was 35, ambitious and fascinated by the formula Elder Vane had given to Commander Morrison. The formula was beautiful, but it was incomplete. It was like having half of a map. Kevin spent 5 years working with the Kaleth. They taught him patiently, filling in the gaps. The Kaleth had once been travelers between stars, but their knowledge was fractured. They remembered pieces, fragments, but not everything. "We were not scientists," explained a Kaleth named Shen. She was younger than Vane, only 150 years old. "We were artists, teachers, children. The scientists died on the homeworld. But together, humans and Kaleth figured it out. They combined human innovation with Kaleth knowledge. In 2156, 9 years after first contact, humanity built their first faster-than-light engine. Captain Brandon Cole was chosen to pilot the test flight. He was a calm man, a former military pilot who never panicked. When the engine activated, his ship disappeared from Mars orbit and reappeared near Saturn in just 3 seconds. The celebration lasted for a week. Humans and Kaleth danced together in the Mars domes, Well, the Kaleth did their version of dancing, which looked like floating and spinning their long arms. It was beautiful. Elder Vane spoke at the celebration. He was older now, his shimmer dimmer than before. You gave us life. We give you the stars. Fair trade. But Nicole, now in her second term as president, shook her head. We didn't save you for a trade. We saved you because it was right. Vane's large eyes studied her. I know, that's why we are happy to share. The years continued to pass. The Kaleth population slowly grew. Medical advances helped them recover. By 2170, there were 112 Kaleth. By 2180, nearly 200 they had children, which amazed human scientists. Kaleth children were born from genetic combinations created in special chambers. They were tiny, fragile things that took years to mature. The first Kaleth child born in the Sol system was named Vera, and her birth was celebrated across both species. The friendship deepened. Human children grew up playing with Kaleth children. Scientists worked together. Artists collaborated. A new culture began to form, neither human nor Kaleth, but something beautiful in between. But there were problems. The Kaleth scientists, the few who remembered medical knowledge, discovered something terrible. The Kaleth couldn't truly reproduce properly in the Sol system, something about the radiation or the distance from their home star, or perhaps just genetic damage from their near extinction. The children born were weak. Many died young. By 2189, 42 years after the rescue, the reality became clear. Elder Vane called a meeting with President Hayes and the human leadership. The room was quiet as he spoke. My people are dying, Vane said simply. His voice was tired. He was 242 years old, ancient even for a Kaleth. We live long lives, but not forever. The youngest survivor from the original ship is now old. Our children born here are few and weak. In 100 years, maybe less, the Kaleth will be gone. The silence in the room was heavy. Nicole felt her heart break. There must be something we can do. Vane's shimmer pulsed sadly. You have done everything. Given us home, food, friendship. But some things cannot be fixed. We accept this. We are grateful for the time we had. But humanity didn't accept it. President Hayes authorized research programs. Scientists worked to understand Kaleth genetics. They tried to find ways to help, to strengthen the children, to extend the lives of the adults. Nothing worked. Kevin Martinez, now 53 years old and one of humanity's leading experts on alien biology, spent sleepless nights in his lab. He had become close friends with Shen over the years. She taught him to appreciate Kaleth art. He taught her about human music. They were friends, true friends across species. I can't figure it out, Kevin told her one evening. They sat in the Mars dome, watching Earth rise over the horizon. Your genetics are too damaged. The cosmic radiation from your star's explosion, the years in space, the near freezing, it changed something fundamental. Shen's shimmer was peaceful. We know. It's all right, Kevin, you gave us years we wouldn't have had. You gave us friendship. That's more than enough. It's not enough for me, Kevin said stubbornly. Shen made a sound like wind chimes, laughing. You humans. Always fighting. Always refusing to give up. That's why we love you. By 2189, the Kaleth population had peaked at 212 individuals, but the older ones were beginning to die. Natural deaths, peaceful ones, but deaths nonetheless. Each loss was mourned by both species. Elder Vane knew he didn't have much time left. He gathered the human and Kaleth leadership together. He had something to tell them, something important. Our homeworld, he said. Before we left, before the star exploded, our ancestors built a vault. Deep underground, it contained our genetic library, our history, our culture. Everything we were, Nicole leaned forward. Do you think it survived? I don't know, Vane admitted. But if it did, if you could find it, perhaps there is hope. Perhaps the knowledge there could save my people. He handed over star charts, coordinates, everything the Kaleth remembered about their home system. It was far away. Months of travel even with faster-than-light drives. We are too weak to go ourselves, Vane said. But maybe you... He didn't need to finish. Nicole stood up, her eyes fierce with determination. We'll find it. I promise you. Vane's shimmer pulsed with gratitude and sadness. He knew he wouldn't live to see if they succeeded. But he had hope. He had seen what humans could do when they cared about something. As the meeting ended, Vane looked around at the humans who had become his family. He thought about Commander Morrison, who had first decided to help. He thought about the countless humans who had worked to make the Caleth comfortable. He thought about the children who played together without seeing differences. "Thank you," he said softly, "for everything." The search for the Caleth homeworld would begin, and with it a new chapter in their shared story. Captain Tyler Bennett had been in space for 4 months. The journey to the Caleth homeworld was long, even with humanity's fastest ships. The Pathfinder was built specifically for this mission, carrying the best crew Earth and Mars could provide. Dr. Michelle Grant stood beside Tyler on the bridge as they finally approached the system. She was an archaeologist, someone who studied ancient civilizations. She had volunteered immediately when she heard about the mission. "There," she said, pointing at the screen. "That should be it." The star at the center of the system was wrong. It was dim, dying, collapsing into itself. The planets around it were burned husks. Everything was dead. "Which planet was the homeworld?" asked Chris Dalton, the ship's military strategist. He was a serious man who rarely smiled, but even he seemed moved by the sight. Tyler checked the coordinates Elder Vane had provided. "Third planet from the star. What's left of it?" As they approached, the devastation became clear. The planet's surface was black and cracked. Oceans had boiled away. Cities had melted into glass. Whatever the Caleth had built was gone. "There's nothing here," Chris said quietly. "We came all this way for nothing." But Michelle wasn't giving up. She studied her instruments carefully. "Wait, I'm getting readings from deep underground. Something is still powered down there." Tyler made the decision. "We're landing. Prep the shuttle." The landing party consisted of 12 people: Tyler, Michelle, Chris, and 9 others. They wore protective suits because the surface was still radioactive from the star's explosion. The temperature was extreme, swinging from burning hot to freezing cold. They landed near where Michelle's readings were strongest. The ground was hard and cracked like dried mud. In the distance, they could see the ruins of what had once been a city. Massive structures now collapsed and melted. "The readings are coming from there," Michelle said, pointing to what looked like a crater. It took them 3 hours to climb down into the crater. The walls were steep and dangerous. But at the bottom, they found something incredible. A door. It was sealed, made of metal that somehow survived everything. The door was covered in Caleth symbols. Michelle ran her hands over them, her eyes wide behind her helmet. "This is it. This is the vault Elder Vane talked about." Getting the door open took 2 days. They had to bring equipment from the ship. They had to carefully cut through locks that were never meant to be broken. But finally, with a sound like thunder, the door opened. Inside was darkness. Their lights cut through it, revealing a massive chamber. And in that chamber they found rows and rows of machines. Thousands of them, each one glowing softly with a blue light. Michelle approached the nearest machine. Its display showed a symbol, a name in Caleth language, and an image. It was a Caleth face frozen in time. "It's a genetic archive," she breathed. "Each one of these machines contains the genetic code for a Caleth individual." Tyler looked around. There were thousands of machines. Tens of thousands. Maybe more. "How many?" he asked. Michelle checked her scanner. Her hands were shaking. "At least 50,000. Maybe more in the other chambers. This isn't just a backup. This is their entire species." They found more as they explored. Medical chambers designed for cloning. Computers filled with knowledge, history, art, science, everything the Caleth had ever learned. Food production systems. Educational databases. It was an entire civilization preserved in a tomb. But there were problems. The facility was old, very old. It had been running on backup power for decades. Systems were failing. Entire sections were dark. Some of the genetic archives were corrupted beyond repair. Chris found the main computer. It took him hours, but he managed to access it. What he found made him call Tyler immediately. "Captain, you need to see this. The facility is dying. The power core is failing. In maybe 5 years, everything here will be gone. The backup systems can't last much longer." Tyler felt his stomach drop. They had found salvation for the Caleth, but it was slipping away. "Can we fix it?" he asked. Chris shook his head. "Not with what we have. The technology here is beyond us. The power core alone is something we've never seen before. And the cloning chambers, the genetic restoration systems, they're all using principles we don't understand." They worked for a week, documenting everything. They copied as much data as they could. They took samples. They studied the systems. But the more they learned, the more impossible the task seemed. On the 8th day, Elder Vane arrived. He had insisted on coming even though the journey was hard on his old body. He was one of 3 original Caleth survivors still alive. The trip might kill him, but he didn't care. Tyler helped Vane into the vault. The old Caleth moved slowly, his shimmer very dim now. But when he saw the rows of genetic archives, he stopped. For a long moment, he just stood there. Then his shimmer pulsed, bright and strong, stronger than Tyler had ever seen it. Vane made a sound that needed no translation. It was joy and grief mixed together. "My daughter," Vane whispered, touching one of the machines. "This is my daughter. She died in the evacuation." He moved to another. "My brother. My teacher. My friends." Tears ran down Tyler's face inside his helmet as he watched Vane move through the vault, greeting the stored souls of his people. Finally, Vane turned to Tyler. His voice was thick with emotion. "Can you save them?" Tyler wanted to lie, to give hope, but he couldn't. "I don't know. The technology is beyond us. It would take decades to figure out. Maybe longer, but possible," Vane pressed. "Maybe, if we dedicate everything to it. All our resources, our best minds. If we stop our expansion, if we focus only on this." Tyler paused. "It would cost humanity everything we've been working for." Vane's shimmer dimmed. Too much to ask. But Tyler thought about the 43 Caleth who had arrived dying in space. He thought about how humanity had helped them without question. He thought about Elder Vane teaching human children mathematics, about Shen sharing art with Kevin, about all the years of friendship. "No," Tyler said firmly. "It's not too much. You saved us once, showed us we weren't alone in the universe. You gave us the stars. Now we'll give you back your people." Vane's large eyes studied Tyler's face. "You cannot promise this. You are not the leader of humanity." "No," Tyler agreed. "But I know humanity. And I know we don't abandon our friends." They spent 3 more days in the vault before heading back. Vane wanted to stay, to spend time with the stored memories of his people, but his body couldn't take it. Tyler had to almost carry him back to the shuttle. On the journey home, Tyler recorded a message for Earth. He explained everything they found. He showed images of the vault, the genetic archives, the technology. He explained the cost, what it would take to save the Caleth. "I know what I'm asking," Tyler said to the camera. "I know it means delaying our expansion. I know it means dedicating resources we plan to use for ourselves. But I also know what we are as humans. We don't let friends die when we can save them. We don't count the cost when lives are at stake." He paused, looking at Elder Vane resting in the background. The old Caleth was sleeping, exhausted but peaceful. The Caleth helped us once, expecting nothing in return. They shared knowledge, friendship, and hope. Now we have a chance to help them in return. Not because we owe them, but because it's right. Because that's who we are. The message was sent ahead at faster than light speed. By the time the Pathfinder returned to Sol System 4 months later, Earth had made its decision. The vote wasn't even close. 97% of humanity agreed. They would save the Caleth no matter what it took. Elder Vane heard the news as they entered Mars orbit. His shimmer pulsed so brightly that it lit up the entire medical bay. He tried to speak but couldn't. He just held Tyler's hand, his long fingers wrapped around human ones. No words were needed. The promise had been made. Now came the hard part, keeping it. Director Lauren Phillips looked at the list of volunteers. It was 3 million names long, and more were being added every hour. Engineers, scientists, construction workers, teachers, doctors, people from every country, every walk of life, all wanting to help save the Caleth. She was 52 years old, chosen to lead what they were calling the Caleth Restoration Project. It was the biggest undertaking in human history. It would take everything they had. The first challenge was understanding the technology. The Caleth Vault used principles that human science barely touched. The power core ran on something that wasn't quite fusion, wasn't quite antimatter. It was something else entirely. Nathan Cross was the chief engineer. He was a big man with rough hands and a brilliant mind. He had built Mars domes, designed spacecraft, solved problems everyone said were impossible. But the Caleth technology made him feel like a child. "It's beautiful," he told Lauren during one of their meetings. "Everything connects in ways I never imagined. But I don't understand half of it." "Then we learn," Lauren said simply. "We have time." But they didn't have much time. The vault was failing faster than they thought. Computer projections showed they had maybe 3 years before critical systems shut down forever. Maya Patel was the lead geneticist. She was young, only 31, but she had studied Caleth biology for 10 years. She understood their genetic code better than anyone, but the cloning technology was different from anything humans had developed. It's not just cloning, she explained to the team. It's more like resurrection. The genetic archives don't just store DNA. They store memories, personalities, everything that made each Caleth unique. Bringing them back means bringing back who they were, not just their bodies. The project required new technology. Humanity pushed itself harder than ever before. Universities around the world focused on Caleth-related research. Companies donated resources. Governments redirected funding. The expansion to the outer solar system stopped. Plans for new colonies were put on hold. Every ship, every resource, every brilliant mind was pointed at one goal. Save the Caleth, other alien species noticed. Humanity had started to meet other races in their travels. Some were friendly, some were neutral, some were cold. But they all watched with interest as humans threw everything at saving another species. An alien ambassador from a species called the Vorn visited Earth in 2195. They were insect-like creatures. Logical and calculating, their ambassador met with Lauren. "Your dedication is unusual," the Vorn said. "We have studied hundreds of species. None would sacrifice their own advancement for another." "The Caleth are our friends," Lauren replied. "Friends?" The Vorn's translator made the word sound strange. "You barely knew them. They gave you one piece of technology and some cultural knowledge. This is not equal to what you are spending," Lauren smiled. "That's not how friendship works. You don't measure it in costs and benefits." The Vorn seemed confused but left impressed. Later, other alien species began offering help. Some genuinely wanted to assist. Others saw it as a chance to study human technology. A few wanted to learn why humans cared so much. Lauren turned them all away. "This is our promise to keep," she told them. The years passed slowly. In 2197, Nathan and his team finally cracked the power core design. They built a new one, stronger and more stable than the original. It took 2 years and the combined efforts of 10,000 engineers, but they did it. The new core was transported to the Caleth homeworld. It took 6 months to install. When they powered it up, the vault hummed back to life. Systems that had been dark for years glowed again. The failing genetic archive stabilized. Maya and her team worked on understanding the cloning chambers. They practiced with simpler organisms first. They cloned Caleth plants, then animals, then moved to more complex life. Each success brought them closer, but there were failures too. Clones that didn't wake up, genetic sequences that corrupted during resurrection, systems that broke down despite their best efforts. Each failure hurt, but they kept going. Elder Vane watched all of this from Mars. He was very old now, nearly 250 years old. His body was failing, but he refused to die. Not yet. Not until he saw his people restored. Only 2 other original Caleth survived. Elder Shen and a younger male named Korth. They were the last 3 who remembered the old world, who knew what the Caleth had been before the star exploded. In 2208, 17 years after the project began, they achieved their first success. A Caleth named Theron was awakened. He had been a scientist in his original life, dead for 60 years. The cloning chamber opened and he sat up, looking around in confusion. "Where am I?" he asked in ancient Caleth language. Shen was there, and she answered. "You are saved. Welcome back." Theron looked at his hands, felt his face, tried to understand. His last memory was of the star expanding, of the evacuation ships leaving, of knowing he wouldn't make it. And now he was alive. When he learned what humans had done, what they had sacrificed to bring him back, Theron wept. His shimmer pulsed with overwhelming emotion. But one success wasn't enough. They needed to perfect the process. They needed to restore thousands. The work continued. In 2215, they successfully awakened 10 Caleth. In 2220, they awakened 100. Each one was carefully monitored, cared for, helped to adjust to a galaxy that had moved on without them. Maya discovered something important during this time. The genetic archives were prioritized. The Caleth had stored their scientists and engineers first, knowing they would be needed to rebuild. Then artists, teachers, leaders, finally citizens and children. They planned for this, Maya told Lauren. They knew they might need to resurrect their species. They thought of everything. By 2230, nearly 40 years after the project began, they had restored 5,000 Caleth. But the cost to humanity was enormous. Earth's economy had adjusted entirely around the project. Mars was now more Caleth than human. The expansion to other systems had barely progressed. Some humans started to question. Was it worth it? Had they sacrificed too much? Lauren addressed these concerns in a speech that became famous. We could have expanded to 50 star systems by now. We could have built colonies, gathered resources, become powerful, but we chose something else. We chose to keep a promise. We chose to be the kind of species that saves others before helping ourselves. And that choice defines us more than any empire ever could. The speech was broadcast across human space. It was translated into Calith language and played for the awakening people. It reminded everyone why they had started this. Elder Vane died in 2232. He was 274 years old. He died peacefully, surrounded by humans and Calith. His last words were simple. Thank you for letting me see this. Shen became the eldest Calith. She was 272 herself, but she held on. She wanted to see the project complete. In 2235, they awakened the 10,000th Calith. In 2237, the 20,000th. The process was getting faster as they perfected the technology. The Calith homeworld was rebuilding. Domes were constructed. Cities began to rise from the ruins. Nathan was 78 years old when he installed the last piece of the restoration facility. His hands shook from age, but his mind was sharp. He had spent 46 years of his life on this project, most of his career, and he had never regretted it. Lauren was 83 when she gave the final order. Begin the mass awakening. Over the next 3 years, 50,000 Calith were restored. The vault was fully operational. The civilization that had died was returning to life. Shen lived to see 45,000 awakened. She died at 275, the last of the original survivors. Her funeral was attended by thousands of humans and Calith. She was buried on the Calith homeworld, in soil that was starting to recover. Before she died, Shen said something to Maya. You gave us back everything. How can we ever repay this? Maya, now 61 years old and tired from decades of work, smiled. You already have. You gave us purpose. You showed us what we could be. But the Calith didn't think that was enough. As more of them awakened, as their scientists and engineers and leaders returned to life, they began to realize the magnitude of what humanity had done. Humans had sacrificed 50 years of expansion. They had spent resources that could have built an empire. They had dedicated their best minds to saving another species. They had done all of this expecting nothing in return. The Calith held a council. All the awakened leaders gathered. They discussed what they owed humanity. They debated how to repay a debt that seemed impossible to repay, and they came to a decision. They would give humanity something beyond imagination. They would give them everything the Calith had once been, everything they could be again. But first they had to rebuild themselves. They had to remember who they were. They had to become strong again. The great work was complete. But the story was far from over. Ambassador Ryan Mitchell was 43 years old when he was chosen to represent humanity on the Calith homeworld. The planet had been renamed New Calith, and it was beautiful. The domes had expanded into cities. Gardens grew where there had been ash. The Calith had awakened from their long death and were rebuilding. Ryan walked through the central plaza of the capital city. Calith moved around him, their shimmers bright and healthy. They were no longer the fragile dying species that had arrived at Jupiter 93 years ago. They were alive, vibrant, and growing stronger every day. 50,000 Calith now lived on New Calith. More were being awakened every month. Scientists, artists, engineers, teachers, children, an entire civilization returning from storage. But something had changed. Ryan noticed it in small ways. The technology the Calith were building seemed more advanced than before. The ships they constructed moved faster. The energy systems they developed were more efficient. It was as if they were remembering something, or perhaps becoming something more. He met with the Calith High Council in their assembly hall. It was a beautiful building, all curves and flowing lines with walls that glowed softly. The council consisted of 12 Calith, all leaders from their old civilization who had been awakened. Ambassador Mitchell, said Council Leader Theron. He had been the first Calith successfully awakened, and he had become one of their most important figures. We have asked you here to discuss the debt. Ryan shifted uncomfortably. Humans had been taught never to call it a debt. You owe us nothing. What we did freely. "We know," said another council member, a female named Vaisha. "That is precisely why the debt is so great. You expected nothing, yet gave everything." Theron stood. His shimmer pulsed with intensity. "Ambassador, humanity does not know what it saved. We were not just any species. Before the star explosion, before our near extinction, the Kaleth were one of the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy." Ryan felt his heart beat faster. "What do you mean?" "We intentionally hid this," Vesha explained. "When we arrived at Jupiter, dying and desperate, we did not want to seem as if we were repaying a debt while weak. We did not want to manipulate you with promises. We wanted your help to be pure, uncomplicated by expectations. But we are no longer weak," Theron said. "We are remembering who we were. Our scientists who have awakened remember technologies your species has not dreamed of. Our engineers know secrets of physics that could change everything." Over the next hour, the council explained. The Kaleth had once built structures that could move planets. They had traveled between galaxies. They had mastered energy in ways that made human fusion reactors look like campfires. They had lived for centuries, understood genetics completely, and had begun to touch the edges of what some might call magic. The star explosion had killed their greatest minds, destroyed their infrastructure, scattered their knowledge. The survivors had been common people, civilians who remembered fragments but not the whole. But now, Theron said, those minds are returning. Every scientist we awaken remembers more. Every engineer brings back knowledge. In 10 years, we will be what we once were, and we owe it all to humanity. Ryan felt overwhelmed. "What are you saying?" "We are saying we want to repay you," Vesha replied. "But how do you repay someone who gave you existence itself? How do you thank a species that sacrificed their own advancement to save you?" "You don't need to," Ryan insisted. "That's not why we did it." "We know," the entire council said together. "That's why we must." Over the next 5 years, the Kaleth repayment began. At first, it was small things. Better power systems for Earth and Mars. Improved medical technology that extended human lifespans. Ships that could travel faster and farther. But then it grew. The Kaleth built a construction sphere around Earth's sun, capturing energy humans had never imagined using. They taught human scientists about quantum mechanics that made everything they knew seem basic. They shared genetic treatments that could cure diseases and extend human life to 200 years. Nathan Cross, now 88 years old, stood with a group of Kaleth engineers as they demonstrated new propulsion technology. Ships that could cross the galaxy in weeks. Shields that could protect planets from asteroids or hostile weapons. Energy sources that never ran out. "Why are you giving us all this?" Nathan asked a Kaleth engineer named Court. "Because you gave us back our children," Court replied simply. "Because you spent 50 years saving us when you could have been building an empire. Because when we arrived dying at your doorstep, you didn't ask what we could offer. You just helped." Maya Patel was 71 when the Kaleth gave humanity their greatest gift. It was a medical technology that could restore youth, heal injuries, and extend life indefinitely. Not immortality exactly, but close enough. "We want humanity to live long enough to see what we build together," Theron explained when presenting it. "We want the children who grew up with Kaleth children to have centuries to continue those friendships." But the gifts kept coming. The Kaleth built defensive platforms around Earth, Mars, and all human colonies. Protection against anything the galaxy could throw at them. They shared knowledge of other species, of galactic politics, of dangers humans needed to know about. They built ships for humanity, hundreds of them, better than anything humans could construct. They trained human crews in advanced tactics and technology. Within 10 years, humanity went from a young species taking its first steps into the galaxy to one of the most advanced civilizations known. Other alien species watched with amazement and envy. The Vorn ambassador returned to Earth, meeting with Ryan. "We underestimated you," the Vorn admitted. "We thought you were foolish to help the Kaleth. We thought you wasted resources on sentiment. We were wrong." "We didn't do it for this," Ryan said, gesturing to the advanced ships in orbit, the energy shields, the thriving civilization around them. "We know," the Vorn replied. "That's what makes it remarkable. You helped without expecting reward, and your reward is beyond measure. But the greatest gift came in 2260, 70 years after the project began. The Kaleth High Council invited all human leadership to New Kaleth. Ryan was there, now 53 but looking 30 due to Kaleth medical technology. Lauren was there, alive at 133 thanks to life extension. Nathan was there at 98, still sharp and still working. Theron stood before the assembled crowd of humans and Caliph. Thousands filled the plaza. Millions more watched across both civilizations. 70 years ago, Theron said, 43 of my people arrived at your system, dying. You had every reason to turn us away. You were young, struggling yourselves, limited in resources, but you helped us anyway. Then when you discovered our genetic vault, you made a choice. You could have taken what little we could give and moved on. Instead, you spent 50 years bringing us back. You sacrificed your expansion, your resources, your advancement. You did it expecting nothing in return. Today we stand before you, 50,000 strong and growing. Our children laugh in streets built by human and Caliph hands together. Our scientists work alongside yours. Our species, which was extinct, is alive. Theron's shimmer pulsed brightly. We can never repay this debt. The mathematics don't work? You gave us existence. What payment equals that? So we won't try to repay it. Instead, we propose something else. Not a repayment, but a unity. We propose that humanity and the Caliph become one civilization. Not humans helping Caliph or Caliph helping humans, but one people. One future, one destiny. The crowd was silent. Then Theron continued. We share everything we have, everything we are, everything we will become. Your children and ours grow up together already. Your old and ours work side by side. Why pretend we are separate? A Caliph child and a human child walked forward holding hands. They stood next to Theron, looking out at the crowd. This is our future, Theron said. Together. The vote took 3 months. Both civilizations debated, discussed, considered. In the end, 98% of humans agreed. 100% of Caliph agreed. The union was formalized in a ceremony attended by every species in the galaxy. A new flag was created, showing human and Caliph symbols intertwined. A new government was formed, with representatives from both species. Ambassador Ryan Mitchell became one of the first co-directors of the United Peoples, alongside Theron. Together, they led a civilization that was becoming the most powerful in the galaxy. But the power wasn't military, though they had strength. It wasn't economic, though they had wealth. It was something else. It was the power of demonstrated compassion, the power of a species that had saved another expecting nothing in return. Other species began to seek alliance with the United Peoples. They wanted to be part of what humanity and the Caliph had built. They wanted to learn how to care like humans did, how to be loyal like humans were. 10 years after the Union, Ryan stood on New Caliph with Theron, looking up at the sky. Ships moved above them. Human and Caliph designs merged into something new and beautiful. Gardens stretched to the horizon, mixing earth flowers with Caliph plants. Children of both species played in parks designed by both cultures. Do you ever regret it? Theron asked. Spending 50 years on us instead of expanding? Ryan smiled. Never. We could have claimed 50 star systems and been